everyone, it is July 25th, Saturday, approximately 1:30 in the morning. I just got back from my shower and so I'm feeling all cleaned up, squeaky clean. This video is going to be my take on gun control. If back when I was younger, I would have said something extremely bold and kind of arrogant. I would have said, if you want to know my opinion on gun control, then just go back on my website and look at all of my other videos so that you can learn what common sense is. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who just don't get it, and I don't know why. I don't know what their disability is. Barack Obama is clearly a dumbass. That's nothing against him because he's black. I'm not a racist. I'm just being honest. He's an idiot. I'm sorry. That's the reality of the situation, obviously. Because well, first of all, arrogance is usually what leads to ignorance. It's usually arrogance first. And so you can't really tackle the problem of ignorance until you actually tackle the problem with arrogance. And what seems to be obvious to me, it apparently is not very obvious to a lot of people for some reason. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm just gifted. I don't know. But it's completely obvious in every single way that if you want the crime, the murder and the homicide and all that stuff, if you want it to go down, you need to put a gun in everybody's hands. In fact, if you want the child abductions to go down, if you want the amount of rapes that take place in the United States to go down, if you want the child molesters to stop acting on their own appetites for all intents and purposes, then you need to put a gun in everybody's hands. And I'm not saying that you need to put a gun in every child's hands as well. Parents need to take responsibility for their kids. But for quite some time now, the government has been conditioning people to not worry about safety. Basically what I'm saying is that the government has been conditioning people for years now to leave the security to the government. And I'm talking about the police and whatnot, all that stuff from top to bottom, A to Z. And so because the government has been taking the American taxpayers and then splurging most of it out of corruption and then giving what little left to the actual police department, this has basically conditioned a lot of Americans. And I'm not saying everybody, because some of us know better than to allow ourselves to become lazy, but a lot of people have been conditioned to leave the security to the government, such as police officers and things like that. So this has had a very profound effect on Americans today, and I've noticed this, and I've known it for quite some time. If you want the crime rate to drop, then you need to put a gun in everybody's hands. It really is that simple. Instead of splurging out of corruption 90% of the budget and then giving 10% of the budget to the actual police departments and the sheriff deputies all around the country, what they need to do is they need to use that taxpayer money that they've been using out of corruption, and they need to actually fund a nationwide effort to just give a gun away and a holster and a certificate to get proper gun training as well. All of the shoot, and I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more. Even though I shouldn't have to, it should be obvious, but I'm a little more mature these days and I have grace now, so I'm actually going to be patient and whatnot. But all of the shootings that have taken place in the in the theaters and the hospitals and the schools. If every single teacher, if just the teachers in those schools, these big places, a lot of people, a lot of buildings, a lot going on, if just the teachers were packing at least a 42 on their hip, okay, at least, and I hope I said that right. I don't know shit about guns. I really don't. But I have common sense, so I should know a lot about guns, but I actually don't. But I think I mean to say a 42. If I don't have it right, just fill in the gaps with whatever the correct name of it is. It's the small caliber, those small guns that shoot the small caliber. That's what I'm talking about when I say 42. I don't even know if that's actually correct or not. But if just the teachers were packing a basic sidearm, visible on their hip, meaning everybody knew that they had it, okay, and if every single teacher knew how to use it, was properly trained, I cannot guarantee you that every single shooting everywhere wouldn't have happened, but I can guarantee you that most of them wouldn't have happened. And the situation would have been diffused. Taking a human life is not a joke. It's a serious thing. But let's not forget that this is a fallen world that we live in. This is absolutely a fallen world. It always was, and it always will be. Okay? For those of you who are Christian, look in the book of Genesis, the very first book. There's 66 books in your Bible. Well, actually, this is referenced all over the New Testament as well, but just look in the book of Genesis, chapter 1. Start at the creation of the earth. And then a little bit into Genesis, you'll learn about what happened in the Garden of Eden. God told Adam and Eve that because of what you've done today, the ground is going to produce thorns and thistles. And of course, he said a bunch of other things, and then God said, this world is now going to be cursed, and just read the scriptures. It's right there. Okay. So for those of you who are Christians, this is a fallen world. It's never going to be perfect, but I can guarantee you that if the government put a gun in everybody's hip, in a holster to hold it in, made it visible, I can guarantee you the crime rate involving firearms would absolutely go down immediately, and it would be consistent. It wouldn't be completely at zero, but it would go down significantly, and it would stay that way. I can also guarantee you that the amount of common respect that people would have for each other would also go up at the same time, which would almost compensate for the fact that there's still some crime. But it would be such a huge difference from the way that it is now that, immediately people would see just how, some of them would see just how ignorant they were all those years, and they would feel pretty dumb, but eventually they would get over it and everything would get better. But anyway, that's obvious. That's my stance. And I am completely opposed to violence. I am. I'm a firm believer that violence only attracts violence. I work out, I lift weights, I run. I just ran 6 miles tonight up here in Golden. 6,000 feet. Denver's 5,000. Up here in Golden, 6,000 feet. I just ran 6 miles. I do things that the average American can't even fathom in their brain. Okay? But I don't work out so that I can be some tough guy. I don't believe in violence. I'm totally harmless in every single way. Granted, I have my flaws, but that's not really what we're talking about here. So, that's my take on it. We need to put, of course, people need to receive training, especially kids. In my opinion, every single American 16 years old and above needs to be packing heat on their hip. That's how it was in a long time ago, back at the very, very beginning of America, when it was like small towns. A lot of people camped out, and then they just went into town for the saloon or whatever, If you were 16, you had a gun on your hip. I mean, it was a common thing. It really was. In fact, back then, you weren't even a man unless you had a gun. You know what I mean? Like it was. I mean, that's just how it is. You know, there was one sheriff. It was elected. That guy was elected from somebody within that small town. It wasn't even. It was nothing like it is today. It was nothing like it is today, quite on that magnitude. And I'm not saying that we need to adopt every little thing how it was back then, but I am saying that people will absolutely think twice if everybody has a gun visible. And if somebody does decide to use their gun, either it's just cause or it's not. And if it's not, then people are going to freak out. It's going to be a tragedy, but the situation is going to resolve itself. That's all I'm saying. You know, and I'm completely against violence in every single way. I would absolutely strap a gun to my hip. I would. And I would hope to God that I would never have to pull that thing out of the holster ever. Unless it's target practice or something. You know, I'm shooting at a paper target or something. You know, but I'm completely opposed to violence, but I would absolutely pack a gun on my hip. I really would. I'm not going to lie to you, mostly for show. It's mostly for show. But I would absolutely participate in every possible way. I would just hope that I would never have to use it. I really, really would. You know, there's always going to be that small percentage. I mean, a lot of these guys are going crazy for a reason. Some of them really are crazy, but some of these people, I don't really watch the news. Every so often I stumble upon it. I mean, mainstream media has everything twisted. They're saying that the crime rate has gone down since we started enforcing gun control. And that's actually not true. That's actually completely not true in every possible way. I don't know where they're getting their facts from, but that's actually a lie, first of all. Second of all, a lot of these guys, they're not fucking crazy. They may be upset. They may be angry, okay? And it's never okay to actually act on your emotions in some cases, and it's everyone's individual responsibility to know the difference. But some of these people have a legitimate reason for being upset. And of course, what they did was wrong, taking a life and doing what they did. But, you know, it's like some of these people are not crazy at all. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were so frustrated, so angry that they just snapped. And, you know, it can happen to anybody, really. So, I mean, that's my take on it. That's 13 minutes and 25 seconds. This is probably going to be one of the worst videos I've ever made in terms of video quality. It's going on 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm getting ready to go to bed. And the lighting, I didn't really realize it until now, but the lighting isn't all that great. So it's best to open up a window or something and let some of the natural light come in when I'm making a video. But anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest. If you want the crime rate to go down, then you basically need to put a gun in everybody's hands. And you need to train them too, because they need to know how to use it. You know, guns can be dangerous. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. That's obvious. You know, if you give a gun to a 16-year-old kid, look, if you've ever held a gun, it's like a little mini paperweight. I mean, if you hold a gun, you know exactly what you're holding. And immediately you have that overwhelming feeling that this is not a joke. This is a serious, it's not a toy. It's a very serious, you know, thing, a gun. It's not something that should be taken lightly. Any 16-year-old boy or girl would understand that. It's not a joke. If you ever hold a gun, you know, looks shiny and it looks, looks interesting, but when you actually hold a gun, there's something very interesting that happens inside of you that kind of takes over instinctively. And so, but accidents can happen when people are not properly trained. A lot of people would say, oh, it's not that big, it's not that complicated, it's a gun, it's got a trigger. But no, it's actually more than that. There's a safety on there for a reason. Okay, and bullets have to be loaded in a certain way, and every gun is a little different, and if you don't do it properly, it's not going to function properly either. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer that we need to put a gun in everybody's hands. Okay? Plain and simple, that's my take on it. But people need to be trained. Hell, I need to be trained. I don't know shit about guns. But I welcome the training. I really do. I don't just want a gun to play with. That's not what this is about. This is about enforcing something that I believe needs to be enforced instead of gun control. Because gun control, if somebody wants to get a gun, they're going to get a gun. America has been doing gun control long before these shootings. I just saw another one on the news today. It's July 25th. Well, yesterday, technically. July 24th, I just saw another shooting on the news. It's like, use your common sense. It's not that complicated. It baffles me that Obama hasn't completely changed his policies and his take on things already. I mean, it's crazy. And maybe there's a bigger agenda at stake here. I don't know. But I just think it's very interesting that, our president is not actually making decisions that's in the best interest of Americans. And it's obvious. But anyway, that I'm going on 17 and a half minutes. That's my video. Thanks for watching. MassageBF.com. I make these videos to try and wake people up. There's a lot of ignorance out there, unfortunately, and I'm just exercising my constitutional rights here. That's all. Hope you enjoy.